Hi everyone, and welcome back. Um, so today, I think what we need to do now will be to sort out these joints, get the cotter pins in, get the weight in, and the stuff in. So since last time, I've had another look. Where is he? At the teddy bear's facial features. So I'll give him a bit more shading around his eyes, and also a bit all on his muzzle. So just to give him a little bit more character. So hopefully that'll all fit in nicely when he gets his hat and clothing. But what I've done is I've filled, put him down here a bit, sorry, a bit close to the camera. I filled both arms with stuffing and obviously put the joints in, stitch them up at the back. Same with the head and just the one leg. So he's a bit lopsided at the minute. So what we need to do next is, I'll put him down there a moment, is get this other leg. So what I have done with the foot is I've cut myself a template for the bottom of their feet. This is like 350-gram card. I mean, it's sometimes I'll put this in, sometimes I won't. If you're going to do something like sculpt their toes or anything like that, then obviously you can't put it in because you'll need to pull the thread tight to get the shape and everything. So, but sometimes if you want to weight the feet and everything, just my thing that I like to do, it that gives a nice flat thing to the bottom of the foot. But it also, if you put some weight in, I mean, my weight is really small, etc. But if you put weight in, you could still feel the actual lumps in there. So I think that just helps. So what I have actually done as well is I've put a tiny bit of filling down right in this toe here. Not much, just a little bit, just to pad that end of that toe out. Because I tend to find when I do the legs that if you want your teddy bear to stand, it's always best to put a bit of weight in, but to put it towards the toe a bit more, not right at the toe, but just so far across the foot, so that it just gives it that better balance when they're standing up. So here I've got, it's just a piece of a pair of tights, the toe. What I did was I cut the toe off and then cut it in half. Use one half for one foot, and I've done the other foot with the other half. And then in there, I've put 15 grams of these tiny little 1 mil, I think they're 1 mil or 2 mil, there might be 2 mil, but the stainless steel discs for weight. They're only really small, but they have got quite a lot of weight to them, which is what I like rather than having to put a lot of things inside. So the next thing I would do is, like I say, I've already put some stuff in that part of the toe there. Is I'm going to put this down into there, get my hands up off the table so I don't shake the camera. Now this, unfortunately, is just fiddly, and all you can keep doing is keep working. I mean, you can use your hemostats and that, but I just like to do it with my finger, and that's so I can feel exactly where it's going. Give it a bit of a shake. There we go. I can feel it going into the foot now. There we go. Push that down. I never like to put the weight in just straight into the bear. I know some people do, and obviously it's all each to their own. Everybody's got their own way of doing things, but I like to put it into something first rather than straight into the bear. just in case if ever the seams came undone or anything like that, you've at least got something to keep the weight all together. Okay, so I've pushed that now right down into that foot. So it does it. I don't know if you can see if I drop it on the table. It kind of just keeps it upright. So now I'm going to put a little bit more of this filling down into the foot, just to keep that weight where I want it. And then we'll put this cotter pin joint in. Just make sure that's exactly down in that foot again. Yep, that's down there. So where are we? Hemostats. So I'm going to put this just a little bit at a time. Excuse me. Down right into the foot. And like I say, if you're doing this and you're not putting the card in the bottom and you want to stitch the toes to shape them, you know, to get that nice puffy pad at the bottom, don't fill the foot as much as you would if you're just doing it like this to have it plain, because otherwise you'll never get the sculpting on the bottom of the foot. So put a bit more of this down there. Oops. Oh, crikey. All fingers and thumbs today, as they say. Just wonder where that saying came from, really, and what you think about it. That's what we are, all fingers and thumbs on it. But there you go. Right. So now that will hold that nicely in place down there, like so. Underneath there, there's still room for some more in that foot, but I don't want to do it too firm, just nicely. So next job, that leg belongs on that side of the teddy bear, so I'm going to turn this part through a little till I've found my marker that I put on. Excuse me again. And my marker that I put on when I cut the bear out. I'm getting it all, excuse me, and finding the like a hole in the weave, if you like, of the mohair. Can't always do that, but you can with this one. Just give it a good wiggle around so I've got a nice hole there, which I have. There we go. So now I've got a cotter pin, washer and disc, which I'm now going to put that through there like so. Just gently push it through. It doesn't want to go. Let's have another look. It's got it this time. So then I'm tucking that. These are always fiddly. It's just one of them things. I'm tucking that now back into that teddy bear's leg, which is really difficult to do under the camera there. Let's get onto the cotter pin that way and pull it through. There we go. It's not really that difficult normally. It's just me making a big job of it. So there, that disc is now nicely in that top of that leg. Trying to keep it this side of the seam so that when the filling goes in, it'll keep it nice and flat up against that inside of that leg so that the pin comes out at the right angle, like so. So when it comes to choosing the joints, this one has got a 35mm in. It's so that it just fits nicely inside that limb. So obviously that one would be far too big for the arms. On the arms, I've used a 26mm. So that fits just nicely in there. You get a better joint when you have them about the right size rather than them be wobbly or, actually sticking out of the edge of the mohair, which doesn't look very nice. And then this was the little one that went in his head and in his neck, and that was a 21mm. So not all joints, all the same size for one teddy bear. You do need different sizes, really. We'll put those to one side because that's the one that we'll be using in a bit to fasten the leg to the body. Okay, so now I need to carry on filling this limb with the stuffing. So I think what I'll do now is I'll just stop the camera for a moment, get the rest of that stuffing in here, and I'll be right back. Okay, so we're back with one leg nice and firmly filled with the heavy fibre fill, like so. I always just have a quick feel of the other leg, from the last time when I did that one, just to make sure that this one feels about the same. And another thing just to be careful of when you're doing teddy bears, especially some if they've got really narrow ankles, is to make sure you put a little bit of filling in at a time, just so that you can get that part around the ankle there pretty firm so that it doesn't go floppy, and the foot doesn't go floppy. So I've got a nice flat foot at the bottom. And now the next job is to sew up that hole there. So I've got my thread, my cotton, and I'm going to start right down the bottom there. I'm going to go in and under that seam there. So I'm going in where the actual seam's already been sewn. And I'm going to do one of my little back stitches and a knot. Just a small one. A little knot. Even though I've got a knot on the end of the cotton, I just like to do this to make sure everything is as secure as possible. So now, where the seam allowance is, where I would have sewn the actual seam coming out on this one side. Push the stuffing in out of the way again at the minute and move that fur. So what we're going to do with this again is ladder stitch, like how the ears were sewn on. So it's from there. I'm going to take from the other side what would be the seam allowance as opposite to that as I can. Take a small stitch there, like so. It's very difficult doing this on camera without wobbling the table and everything as well. One small stitch that side. Again, roughly where that thread had come back across, where the seam allowance would be. Another small stitch. You don't want your stitches too small, you don't want them too big either, really, because obviously it's got to fasten this seam up. But and again on the other side, small stitch. The more even you can space these, the nicer the seam will be when we give them all a nice gentle tug to close them all up. Again, just check where we're going. Okay, over to this side, back in there. You need to try and keep it as even as possible, else otherwise you end up with more fabric left on one side than what you've got on the other. Okay, so I'm just going to carry on and just go along here. I'm going to stop the camera again a minute And then when I get to the end, I'll be back and show you how we pull it tight. Won't be a moment. Okay, so I've stitched from one side to the other all the way up the opening on the back of the leg. So this is that really strong thread that I was using to sew the bear up with. So what I do now is I literally just push that down like that with my fingers and just squeeze it together a little, because obviously we want this to go inside like the seam would, and then just gently to pull that, to push that in a bit more there, pull, tucking it in, making sure that stayed in there, which it is doing now, and pull, if you can see, just pull, tuck him down there to make sure that's in, and pull. So, and all your seam is nicely fastened up, virtually invisible. So now I need to make sure that top bit there is nicely, there's a bit there I just need to tuck in. That's there, and all I need to do now is just finish off with that thread, and that's one leg then ready to go into the teddy bear. So I'm going to just finish this off now and tie the knot off, and then again just nip off the camera and finish off, and I'll be back then so that we can put the leg onto the ted. Okay. Okay, so that's leg number 2 complete and ready to go on the teddy bear. So, like I say, I've already put his head. I coloured that bit of his nose, by the way, by using a bit of pastel on this tortilla like that, and just giving it a nice gentle rub on, because I'm not confident enough after all this time still, but I'm still not confident enough to use a marker on him or paint or anything yet. So yeah, so that's how I did that while I just remember. But the next job now is going to be to find in here the other point for where that limb needs to go, which is just about half an inch away from the top of the dart that we put in originally. So again, I'm going to get this all and try and find, which I have, one of the openings in the fibre. So now this is going to be a bit more tricky. What I could do is I could make a mark on this other side as to where it needs to go, but if I just wiggle this round a wee bit like that, that should give me a good enough hole to find on the other side. I'm going to turn this over to turn it to me a little so I can just see where it is. Just move that hair out of the way. If this was thicker hair, I could well trim that down just round this joint as well, but I keep saying it's only sparse, so it's not such an issue. So now I need to get that pin in that hole. Eventually. There we go. So now that pin is nicely through that hole there where we need it to be. So now this is a bit of a fiddly bit too. I mean, yeah, I suppose you could do this with not filling the limbs so everything's floppy, and then fill that the limbs afterwards. I suppose that's a choice as well. So now we need to put the disc onto there, and then the washer onto the disc. Move this fur out of the way so that it's up against the fabric. All right. So now, I don't know quite how I'm going to show this, probably like that. Now I need to get these pliers and turn that over so far. And get hold of it again and turn it again. I don't know if you can see that there. That piece of fur out of the way. Like so. And then once again down. And then on the top there to fold that down as tight as possible against the disc. So you've got that shape there. That needs to be reasonably tight because you think it's okay, but then the legs are all floppy. I mean, if you want really loose limbs, then that's fine, but I don't like my limbs too tight, but I do like them to have a bit of tension on them. So if I want to stand the bear up or lift his arms up, that type of thing while he's standing. So, okay, so that's that side. So now we've got to turn him round and repeat the process on this other side and then see if we need to do it any tighter. So it's on there. It's hard to show this. Let's turn it over once, a little bit. Pull that over there a bit more. There, it's fiddly, trying to show on the camera. So, okay, so we've got that far. Hold the end of it again. Turn it over a little more. And again, just a bit more. So I've got that now. Now I need to get hold of this and turn it over even more to tighten it. And again, with the other. As I'm doing this, I'm actually squashing the leg. So I'm pushing it tight on the joint so that we can get these nice and tight. So we don't end up with a floppy leg. Right, let's see. So we've got that like that now. So now I want to just feel what that limb feels like and what the other one feels like. That one. That one. They're pretty much alike actually. So I think I'm pretty good with that. Just check. I might push this one down just a tiny wee bit on that one there. Right. So he has 2 legs now. 2 legs and 2 arms. Okay, bring him down a bit. He don't fit on the camera now, he's too big. So there we go. Obviously he'll be a bit different once he gets some stuffing in his belly, which is going to be the next thing we need to do. So I've got this part of a pair of tights again, and I've stitched up either side. I did it on the sewing machine, but you can do it by hand, it doesn't matter. Folded it over at the bottom, and I've put 32 grams of these into that bag, so it is quite heavy. Not ever so heavy, but quite heavy. So what I like to do now is, obviously we don't want him to have a lumpy belly or bum for that matter. So the next thing is, I don't know, I wonder if a clip and that'll hold that back a bit while we put this in. It's just more difficult doing it while you're trying to show on the camera. So I'll hold that back there, and then on this side as well. Hold that fluff out of the way a bit. Okay. I'm going to put some of this first now down, right down into his belly at the bottom. And then slightly towards the front. Just like a thin layer really, so that when I put the weight in, it's not going to feel lumpy if you hold him. So I'm just putting that in to the front of his belly there. Okay. I think that could well be enough there. Okay. So what I need to do now though, before I forget, is stitch the top of this up. Could tie it in a knot, I suppose, but I'm going to just stitch across it with actually this needle with this little bit of thread that I've got left from sewing the back of his leg up. Will do just fine. So what I want to do is make sure all this stays in there. So, but I'm going to leave it so that it spreads in the bag a little, and I'm going to just do some running stitches across here. Start off with one way, like so. Pull him reasonably tighter, and then I'm going to go back that way, across, so. Pull that tighter, go back again, tight, again, just okay, back in that again through this. Just to keep it all nice and tight. Do it again on this side. Sorry, I'm a bit off camera here doing it. It's a bit hard to see what I'm doing sometimes. Like I say, these are these are my first videos, if you can't tell. So it is a learning process, all this, to be honest, but hopefully I'll get there in the end. So I just want to make sure, what today is it, that this can't get out of the top of here. Okay, through there, the other side, through there, through there, like so. I should think that if I wrap it round as well a couple of times, I don't think they'll be going anywhere. Just do a couple of knots to finish it off. One more for good luck. Back through there. There we go. Put that needle over there for now. Drop that off. So now I've got a nice little bag of weight that luckily enough it doesn't fall out. It doesn't fall out. I'm just going to chop the top of that off a little bit. I've just got my pinking shears here, that'll do. Just give that a bit of a, there's not quite so much on the top there. Out the way. And now what I'm going to do now is I want to put this in his belly more than his bottom, a bit towards the front. Mind you, let me just check. I could do a little bit more filling down on his bum before we put this in his belly. Again, all this is a slow process. You can't really put too much in at once. And it's a lot of like feeling what you're doing rather than you can see what you're doing. So pushing the stuffing right down between his two legs there in his belly and his bum. And I'm going to add this to the front of him. So if it'll just stay where I've put it, you'll probably be able to see. He's a bit floppy still at the minute. And if you can see, but he's weighted so he sits without falling over. That's the whole idea. If it goes too far to the back, then that weighs him to the back and he'll just tip backwards all the time. But putting it slightly towards the front is what we need. Okay, sorry about that. I had a little technical error. The phone battery ran out. So, where were we? We were at the point of filling this little chap's belly. So let's carry on now with some more filling. We'll put you there a minute. Keep that weight on his belly where we wanted it. Down there. That's it. And get some more of this now. And carry on filling his body. So don't need any hemostats for this really. I want to make sure that I put not too much but a fair bit there. It depends how you want your bear to sit as well really. If you want them a bit floppier, then you wouldn't fill their belly, their body in that quite so much, but I want him reasonably firm but not overly solid or anything, because once we get him finished as well, we'll be wanting to make him some clothes, which with this Monica Spicer pattern you get the pattern for a pair of trousers, a jacket and a hat. So after I've got this part done, it'll be deciding what fabric we're going to use for his outfit, which will be interesting because I've sewn for a lot of years. I think I said in one of the other videos, right from when my kids were little, which was about 40 years ago, and I've got quite a good stash of fabric. So yeah, it's going to be fun sorting something out for that, but I'll just carry on getting this in here, down in his belly. He's got some plenty in his bum. There we go. In there. Tucking it all well in. I mean, if it was a big bear in that, you can get tools that actually help you to put all this in, but with him only being this size, the hemostats, and then when it comes to his body, just putting it in by hand like that, it's simple enough. So, which it's nice actually, because you can actually feel what you're doing as well. But I mean, sometimes I've made bears that have got long, thin limbs when I've made my own patterns up as well. And when you're doing things like that, it is important to just put a little bit in at a time, because you don't want any gaps in between your stuffing in their legs and that, especially. And that's why I have to just be careful as well, around these ankles as well when they've got this. This is a quite reasonable size, but just depending on the pattern. So I'm nearly there now with this. Keep filling that there. Let's have a look when you have a sit down, mate. Well, yep. He doesn't fall over very easily. So when you sit him up properly, nicely balanced, his head's in a nice place. If I can just, let's see if I can tip him backwards a bit. There we go. Nice feet, arms, etc. Right, so now next job's going to be, and the last job actually, I think, making him up will be to stitch the back of his body, which I'm now going to do. I'm going to put a little bit more filling in there. I'm now going to do that with the ladder stitch and etc. exactly the same as I did the back of that leg. So I'm going to pop off camera to do that now, so that this video doesn't go on for too long, and I will come back with hopefully one completed teddy bear. And there we go, ready to be sewn up. And I'll be right back. Okay, so there we have him, one completed teddy bear, sewn up his back. So that's done. It's a proper scruff like, but that's good. I like that sort of character about him anyway. It's nice to do a nice tidy one, but I do like the little scruffy ones. So next thing's going to be is make him his clothes. So if you've enjoyed following along making this chap, in fact, I don't quite know what I'm going to call him yet. Any suggestions for names? That'd be helpful if you want to leave any suggestions in the comments. But if you'd like to carry on following, seeing me get him dressed with his trousers and jacket and hat, if you'd like to follow along, please subscribe, leave me a like, that'd be great. Like I say, a comment, anything like that would be wonderful. Thank you. And hopefully you'll be back to see what he looks like when he's got some clothes and he's not a bear. Okay, thanks for joining me again. Bye for now.